Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Today I want to talk about an implementation I am actually on the fence about. I don't normally release videos about around implementations that I'm on the fence about. It just seems that this kind of solution seems to creep up in a lot of forums, a lot of GitHub based sort of issues and things like that. And it's all about dynamic column definition generation with a Angular material data table and ensuring that sorting works and all of that good stuff. So I came up with an implementation. I guess my real issue with this implementation is I'm not sure it's necessary. I'm not sure that the complexity cost of saving, having these dynamic columns is worth the saving in simply declaring static columns within your mat table template. But that's up for you to decide. I'm just going to show you how all of this works. I'm going to preface that though by saying that if you want to just copy paste the code and play with it and get to grips with it without me talking, then there is a link in the description with my blog post on this, which is where you can go scroll down to the very bottom, copy and paste all the code into the relative files, and it should just work. So let's just show the sorting for each of the columns, and we'll just quickly go into here and describe what we've done or what I've done. So the first thing that I've done is created a column definition type. All this is doing, a column definition class. All we're doing here is just setting a column definition name, a column header value, and a row value function. And the row value function is responsible for returning a value for each column. So this is the path to the value for each column that you'd expect to grab this value from, in this case, the species object per column. I probably explained that really badly. It didn't even sound right when I was talking about it, but hopefully it'll become a lot simpler as we move on through the code. So what we have here is just 11 lines of HTML. Out of all of this, this is really all we really need to talk about because the rest of it's fairly standard stuff. We are setting a data source, or we're binding a data source to our mat table. We're making the material table sortable. We're providing the displayed columns that should be shown via a string array, and we're providing our mat row definitions as usual. This is where this differs. So what we're doing here is we're just providing the for directive to print out or to iterate over, a column definitions array. We're using the column definition object to populate our column definition name, our column definition header, sort header, should I say, and the column header value. So what do you actually want shown on the header? Finally, we're using that function to return the values per row for each column. Now we're going to look at the TypeScript and just go through this. And really what we want to be focusing on is, I guess we'll just start from the top and just sort of explain the lot of it. So the view child here that we've got with this mat sort type, this is typical of what you would want in any example with a sortable table. You want to provide this to your data source. You'll see that happening a little later on. Speaking of our data source, we have a mat table data source taking in the type of object that powers or that is in this data source. We've got the displayed columns, so this is just a string array of all columns that should be displayed. If you change this, columns can get hidden dynamically and all of that good stuff. We've got column definitions. This is, excuse me, this is the array of objects that generate our columns for us. We have some sample data here, which you should be getting, of course, from a service, but I'm just a little bit lazy, so I've just not bothered doing that. We go to our constructor, we set the data source, taking in our species, our sample data. Yeah, kind of droning on a bit here, but we're going to get to the good stuff. So we've got the ng on in it. We've got all of these functions being called. We are setting our data source sort to our mat sort, which you saw as a view child above. And then we've got these functions. So we've got set default visible columns. All I'm doing is mapping our column definition objects to a column definition name array of strings. So the column definition name is the first argument for each column definition. And I just literally want an array containing type, example, number of members, and diet, because I want all of my columns to be viewable by default. Okay, so that's all that's doing there. And again, your behavior is going to change depending on what columns you want visible when. Now this is where we actually do the dynamic generation of columns. So for each column that I want, I instantiate a new column definition. I provide the column definition name, the column definition header, and a function that takes in a row, which is of type species. And then I just state how you are going to grab that value. Now, as a result of this being a function, sorting doesn't work by default. And you can see here that what I've done is I've included an array, and I've included some nested objects just to show that sorting works with both accessing arrays and accessing objects, which by default it does not do. The only thing that will default work, or work by default, should I say, will be when your column definition name is equal to the path that you provide here. If this is equal to this, then you do not have to do anything within this following function here. If it doesn't, so if this is obviously different, so at this point we know it's different because, well, simple enough, then you will have to override the sorting data accessor. So the sorting data accessor is accessed by going to this.datasource.sorting data accessor and providing a function. The function takes in a type, and the type will be the type that is of your data source type. So in my case, it's species, and property. Now the property is what's passed through when you click on the sort header. When you click on the sort header, this property will be, in my case, type, example, number of members, or diet. So what I do, I provide a case, I provide a switch statement that switches on the property, and depending on which one of these column definition names was passed through, I let the table sorting know how to grab the value from that so that it can perform sorting. So you can see here that if I want example to be sorted, I've got to provide it the values that it needs to sort by. Now, by default, sorting starts off or just sorts by ascending, I believe. So yeah, you don't have to provide anything like that in there. I just set the defaults for that. We've got example, number of members, and diet. Each of them we're passing the correct path for the value. But notice that we don't do that for type. We don't do that for type because the default behavior will work. So we just leave that out and let that fall through to the default behavior, which is just returning property of row. Okay, so that works. That's all well and good. The sorting works as a result. You know, we've got ourselves a working solution. As I said, I'm on the fence about this. I'm not sure whether this is such a great idea unless you have a real need to do this. I don't know how much benefit it actually gives you. I guess the one thing it does give you is it does force you to understand how sorting works, how pagination works, how selecting works, you know, what the internal logic is. And if you're the kind of person that's interested in that kind of stuff, maybe this could be a good exercise for you. Or maybe you do have a legitimate business reason to do this. Anyway, if you've liked this video, if it's been interesting, useful, or whatever, then please do leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Got any pointers or ways to improve this code, please leave that in the comments as well. Happy to get into a dialogue around any constructive criticism, whether it's down to the code or the video in general. The other thing that I will say at this point is I haven't actually added any tests so far into any of the example code that I've given. If you're the kind of person that does like a test suite with their code, as I do, then please feel free to ask me. I will I will in future include the tests, and you can see the tests running and what I actually test if that's something that you're interested in. Again, finally, in the description box, there is a blog post that has all of this code. So if you want to copy paste, go ahead, absolutely free to do so. I hope to see you in the next video. And again, thank you very much for listening.